Hello, I'm CJ Werleman, and in this episode, we reveal how Turkey is on the verge of unleashing hell against the Zionist state of Israel. But first, please remember to like and subscribe to our show. Now let's get into it. During the past week, a major news development was deliberately ignored by the Western media, for the simple reason it speaks to Israel's growing weakness in the Middle East. And the word weakness can't be emphasized enough here, given the Zionist-controlled media wants you to believe the opposite is true. That Israel is growing stronger, having completely destroyed Gaza, having pulverized Hezbollah, and having totally neutered the Iranian regime. But this perception of Israeli strength and dominance is nothing more than a carefully manufactured illusion. And you don't need to take my word for it. Instead, focus your attention on the actions of the Israeli government, which convened an extraordinary security consultation on March 25th, over fears that Turkey is mobilizing its forces to confront the Zionist state, and soon. These growing Israeli fears and tears come on the back of a report produced by an Israeli government panel on January 7, which concluded that Turkey now represents a bigger threat than Iran. The report cites Israel's growing concerns towards the new Syrian government, which it fears will inspire, unify, and mobilize Islamist forces and factions throughout the Middle East. These fears are exponentially heightened by the presence of Turkish forces in Syria, with Israeli security officials worried the Arab nation will become a Turkish proxy and an essential part of Turkey's ambition to restore the Ottoman Empire to its former glory. Well, on March 24th, Israel's worst nightmare came to fruition when the new Syrian government granted Turkey a sovereign military base in Palmyra, which will be as large as the United States Air Base in Ramstein, Germany, making Turkey's future air base in Syria the largest military air base in the entire world. Also, Turkey has agreed to train and arm the Syrian army, saying that any attack against its forces or assets will be met with overwhelming force. A threat that carries a big punch, given we are talking about the strongest military in the Middle East, parking itself on Syrian soil and along Israel's border.
Another day, another foreign leader threatening Israel.
We need to be very strong so that Israel cannot do these ridiculous things to Palestine. Just as we entered Karabakh, just as we entered Libya, we can do something similar to them.
These headlines speak to Israel's growing fears and paranoia towards Turkey's growing foothold in neighboring Syria. The Times of Israel says Turkey must be stopped, as other Zionist outlets hype up the jihadist threat in Syria, while some encourage Israel to build an alliance with Kurdish forces. On Sunday, the Israeli newspaper Ynet News said, "Turkey is not Iran, neither in isolation, economy, or influence. It is a dynamic regional power with one foot in the West, major leverage over Europe, and a growing strategic footprint across the East." Make no mistake, this is Israel watching the walls close in. And for this reason, the Israeli military has told Netanyahu to prepare for war against the Muslim superpower.
In Israel, a government commission headed by former Security Council Chief Jacob Nagel has released a report on the defense budget and security strategy. It says the country needs to prepare for a possible future confrontation with Turkey. The Jerusalem Post writes about this. The document mentions the rise to power of pro-Turkish forces in Syria. It is noted that the unification of groups loyal to Ankara in that country poses a threat to Israel's national security.
Israel has become a victim of its own arrogance and hubris, and like a drunk sailor, blindly swinging punches in a dark alleyway, it has fooled itself into believing it can fight and beat anyone, anywhere, at any time. But it's one thing to murder defenseless women and children in Gaza and Lebanon, and it's another thing altogether when confronting a genuine military heavyweight, such as Turkey, which possesses the 8th strongest army on the planet, a full 9 places above Israel. I mean, even Egypt ranks above the Zionist state in terms of military power. However, any conversation that compares Israel's fighting capabilities with another state must begin with the fact that the Zionist army has failed to defeat Hamas, a poorly armed militia that boasted fewer than 30,000 men under arms on October 7, 2023. And it's also important to note here that Hamas forces have grown in the 18 months that Israel's genocidal forces have pounded Gaza into dust, with Israel now openly admitting it has failed against the Palestinian resistance. By every metric, the Zionist army has been run ragged. It's now faced with a recruitment crisis, with reservists refusing to show up for duty, while others of military age flee to Europe and the United States to avoid the consequences of war. Generation Z Israelis are telling journalists that they fear that joining the IDF will earn them a war criminal charge, therefore preventing them from freely travelling around the world. They are smart enough to know that dying on the battlefield for a dying criminal state is a waste of human life.
השומר ומסרב להתגייס. אני מאמין שטבח לא יכול לפתור טבח. ההתקפה הנפשעת בעזה לא תפתור את הטבח הנוראי שהחמאס עשה. אלימות לא תפתור אלימות, ולכן אני מסרב.
I made the decision to refuse before the war. I made that decision because I refused to take part in the IDF's violent policies of oppression and apartheid, and to be part of this endless cycle of bloodshed.
When we do a side-by-side comparison of the Israeli and Turkish militaries, we see that the latter has a massive advantage in overall military power, with Turkey holding a substantial lead in terms of manpower, land power, naval power, economic power, and logistics, with Israel holding a slight advantage only in terms of air power and geography. But, to be perfectly honest, I question the accuracy of this analysis, given Israel's tiny land size makes it difficult for the Zionist military to disperse its forces while under heavy fire. Another geographical aspect to take into consideration is that a war between the two countries would force Israel to traverse Syria, where they will not only be met by Turkish forces, but also the new Syrian army, which has proven its fighting capabilities by defeating the combined forces of Assad, Hezbollah, Russia, and Iran. In Syria, Israel would also lose its air power advantage, as explained by renowned military analyst Andrei Binkov.
If Israel would press forward through Syria with its ground forces, it too would need to rely on air cover, which would mean that once near Turkey, their numerical advantage in air would melt away, and the protection of Israeli air defenses would be more or less non-existent. Israeli SAM systems, while potent, are not really designed to be very mobile. Turkish HISAR SAMs are much more mobile, though not of long enough reach nor available in high enough numbers yet. Israel too would lose some vehicles to Turkish air power, though on a lesser scale. Israeli ground troop losses would increase drastically as Israeli formations would reach close to Turkey. Trying to upkeep logistics for a few 100,000 troops and their vehicles over several hundred miles of Syria, that would be a challenge in itself.
Another advantage Turkey holds is the experience it has gained from fighting in Syria, having carried out extensive military operations against Kurdish militias, including the PKK, YPG, and SDF for years. Remembering that each one of these Kurdish groups were trained and funded by the United States, proving Turkey is not afraid to fight its NATO ally. In fact, Turkey and the US have come perilously close to direct conflict in Syria on several occasions, including this attack 4 years ago.
The Pentagon has confirmed US troops in Syria have come under attack from the Turkish military. It's the first time a coalition base has been in the line of fire since Turkey began its offensive earlier this week. The Pentagon says the artillery explosion came within a few hundred metres of an area where US troops are positioned.
Turkey has entrenched its footprint in Syria by signing a historic ceasefire deal with the Kurdish PKK, bringing with it an end to a nearly 50-year-long war which claimed the lives of more than 50,000 Turks and Kurds.
Kurdish PKK militants have declared a ceasefire with Turkey 2 days after their jailed leader asked them to lay down their arms. Abdullah Öcalan urged fellow members of his outlawed Kurdistan Workers' Party to disarm and disband. The group, which has fought for autonomy since the 1980s, is considered a terrorist organization in the EU, US and Turkey.
That very same day, on March 10th, the SDF agreed to a peace deal with the new Syrian government, which has heralded a new era of peace and stability in post-Assad Syria, with Turkey now establishing itself as the Arab country's security guarantor, much to Israel's unease and displeasure. I mean, rarely, if ever, have we seen the Zionist regime experience this level of anxiety, uncertainty, and fear about its future. And if that doesn't put a smile on your face, then I'm not sure what will. But even if a shooting war doesn't eventuate, Turkey has the naval capability to shut down Israel's economy by cutting off its shipping routes.
Turkey would have one ace up its sleeve. Due to its geographical position, it could upkeep a naval force in the middle of the Mediterranean to try to intercept some cargo ship destined for Israeli ports. That might force Israel to waste part of its air force on Mediterranean missions, and could impact the Israeli economy until Israel redistributes its import and export routes. As said, Israeli Navy is too small and defensively oriented. Only 4 of the largest ships have decently ranged and advanced SAM systems, but if out in the open, even those ships' anti-air systems could not engage Turkish planes doing standoff attacks.
Until then, we are left with only more empty words and promises by Turkish leader Recep Erdogan, who, as I have stated publicly in the past, tends to talk a lot of crap. He failed Palestine during its hour of desperate need, just like every other leader in the Arab and Muslim world. So please, do not confuse this episode for praise of the Turkish government. Our objective is to highlight Israel's weaknesses and fears and then examine the military capabilities of those who are best positioned to exploit them, with the ultimate goal of dismantling the Zionist occupation and liberating Palestine. But that's my time for today. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and we kindly ask you please support our effort to expose and confront injustices in the Muslim world by becoming a member of this show at patreon.com/CJWerleman. We can't produce, sustain and grow the show without your help, and we offer exclusive benefits to those who do. But for now, good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and stay blessed.